Hello, welcome back to our channel, American Ultra Stock. Thank you so much for being here. If it's your first time around, we see that there are a lot of new subscribers. We welcome you and hopefully you enjoy this. This is our weekly segment where we do the stock watch, where we pick 3 players whose stocks went up or down based or not on their performances, but ultimately it did affect their USMNT prospects. And here we are after a long week of action. Club soccer is back. International break is done. Braden, straight to the point, the first one who caught your eye and gets a mention on the stock up.
Yeah, it was a bit of a difficult decision picking the third one here for me. I want to give a quick shout out to Dwayne Holmes, who finally scored after a while out with injury. He had some issues mid-season, finally back on the score sheet. And Conrad De La Fuente as well, getting a brace off the bench, trying to revive his career. But ultimately, I don't think either of those performances are good enough to really move their stocks. I think they're kind of cemented in where they are, which is why I ultimately ended up choosing Johan Gomez for my third spot in stock up. I think the past U23 camp he had was pretty solid for him. I think that raised his stock. I think he was a better striker than Duncan Maguire. I don't think Gomez has had that great of a season, in all honesty, but he looked like the best striker, at least in that camp. And the fact that he can drop deeper into more of a 10 role as well, the versatility is always helpful, especially in an Olympic camp where you're only going to have 18 players on the final roster. Players are going to need to be able to play multiple positions, especially players that will probably be on the bench. So I think Gomez helped us talk a lot. And over the weekend for Eintracht Braunschweig in the second Bundesliga, should have got an assist. I'm not sure why they officially didn't give it to him. It didn't look like it touched any defenders, but it was a great play nonetheless to set up his teammate to score the goal. Dominant, very dominant 5-0 win to get them out of the relegation zone. A huge turning point result for the team to hopefully keep them in the second tier in Germany for the next season. And he's still only 22. He can push on next season if they do stay in the division and even further his career next year. And who knows, maybe due to his performances and outperforming Duncan Maguire, Maguire's been struggling a little bit in MLS as of late, maybe he has a spot on the Olympic roster.
Yeah, definitely. For those of you guys who don't really know Johan Gomez, he's been called up, and it's between him and Duncan Maguire, although I think we may need an overage striker. But it's a great shout because he did look better against Guinea and against France as well, a lot more alert and urgent than Duncan. So maybe, who knows, it's nice for him to stay at that level, second division. We've seen some players come through in the past few years. Player who I'm picking is also a striker, also U23 eligible. He's never been called up for the camps. It's Kaveh Zahirolizlan, plays for St. Truden, playing in that crazy format that the Belgian league has now where they fight for a conference league spot. He didn't score and he didn't get an assist, but what a match. Honestly, if you watched it, he had some really good moments, very silky on the ball. There are extended highlights for St. Truden if you want to watch that on YouTube. It's very easy to get them. And I thought he had a really good match. It goes under the radar a lot. Coming from college, it's a different bridge going to Europe. You don't really have the hype of an MLS club in the back to really back you with any fans, but he's done really well there. Also younger, and I think that he's a player maybe we should have looked at during these Olympic camps because he's been more prolific than Johan as well. So maybe, and at a higher level considerably. I guess that's something you could argue as well. So I'm picking him because I hope, especially since the Belgian league is it starts a little bit later, maybe he could be an option to get an easy release for the Olympics. So putting him there, I think it's a really good season for him so far. So, but now going on a sour note, the next player that didn't make your list and gets a stock down, Braden, who is it?
And at the very least, Kava, his soccer IQ should be really high. I mean, he went to Yale, one of the best colleges in America. So there's that going for him. But on a more negative note, my first stock down is going to be Rokas Buxtas. He had a very high-profile game against Dinamo Zagreb at home, and it just didn't really go the way we all would have hoped it would. Get pulled at halftime due to a very lackluster performance. And honestly, I think he goes very under the radar for good performances and bad performances because, let's be honest, not a lot of our fans watch the Croatian League. Can't really blame them for that. It's a very difficult league to access the games and even the highlights too. But I think he's been putting in a couple of mediocre performances as of late, a couple of good ones as well. He scored 5 goals this season, but ultimately the consistency hasn't been there. He's still just 19, but for a player who's starting for a team that's supposed to be fighting for a league title, I think he just needs to be up just a little bit in the level. They have ultimately bottled the league title now. I think it's fair to say they don't really have much of a chance anymore, and they had a very sizable league as well over Rijeka and Dinamo Zagreb. So it's disappointing to see that. The good news is he does have a chance to make amends because they play Dinamo Zagreb midweek in the cup, the semifinals of the cup. Maybe they can add a trophy onto what has been a pretty successful season. But for now, it has to be a little bit of a stock down for Puskas, and the fact that he hasn't been getting released for the Olympic camps also doesn't help his stock, because I think he'd be a key part of that group.
Yeah, we've mentioned this in the previous video. Not playing in the U20 World Cup in its full entirety, only getting there later on, getting injured this year, some bad performances in key games against Rijeka and Dinamo Zagreb. It's been a little bit of a tough season for him. Hopefully something happens in the summer, maybe. But anyways, I'm going for another midfielder, one that once was a huge prospect for us. I'm going for Alex Mendes. And I'm putting him here because even though he didn't play, he made the bench, which makes me think that his season gets even weirder because at times he's the captain, comes on and plays. At times he's not even on the bench. Well, he made the matchday squad. And I think it's all but done there. Not only for Vizela getting relegated, but also for him with his European adventure. We've seen that Portuguese clubs, especially bottom half clubs, don't really do well paying their wages. If you see a lot of Brazilian players that go there complain about that, Reggie Cannon was very outspoken. I think it may be time for him to come back, maybe San Diego FC or something like that in the MLS. I think ultimately his stock goes down. Maybe something for us to learn as well, to not put too much pressure and hype up these players at a really young age. They still have a lot to prove. And yeah, Alex Mendes, I think it's a sad turn of events, but his career with the USMNT is all but done. I think MLS lifer is a good goal for him at this moment. Has to be him. Best of luck to him, though. Now on definitely a brighter note, Braden, the next one that gets a stock up and impressed you.
Yeah, and this player has been mentioned on Stock Down quite a lot this season, mainly by you. Not really saying there's an agenda there, but maybe I have to give him his flowers when he does have a good performance. Fuller and Balogun coming off the bench, kind of like Conrad De La Fuente did actually, and scoring a brace, which puts him in double-digit goal contributions for the season in what we have to say has been a down year for him, especially considering how good he was last season at Stade de Reims. Moving up to Monaco is a big jump to make. A lot of time to adjust, but maybe he's starting to finally hit some form now. Neither of the goals were necessarily spectacular or anything to write home about, but he was in the right place at the right time, clinical finishes, and his mentality as well is something I want to highlight. He wasn't happy after the game. You could tell he was a little displeased. He said this isn't good enough. He knows he's been having a bit of a down season. It's just honestly just pushing for more. The mentality that he has is one of the things that I think has always gone under the radar, especially coming back from a lot of missed penalties this season. He always comes back stronger from those as well. So I have to highlight the good performance from Balogun, and hopefully he can be a little bit more consistent for the end of the season.
Yeah, I think maybe the fact that he has a manager that has publicly criticized him gets him with a chip on his shoulder. And I think it's nice that he's that environment as opposed to with the USMNT sphere where we basically put him as a lock already. So it's nice that he's getting pushed at the club level. But yeah, no, not really an agenda. It's nice to see Balogun doing well. I hope that he's firing in all cylinders for Copa America. But now moving on to the other one I'm going to pick, also a player that did really well for the USMNT. I've picked him a few times in the past, but how can you not? Haji Wright, the guy gets on the score sheet every week. It was between him and Sargent, but I've put Sargent here so many times this season. He scores back to back to back all the time. But I think Haji's performance was really nice. Not only the fact that he scored, but also if you watch the way that he plays, I think he's getting a little bit better playing with his back towards goal. And that's something that in the past I didn't think that Haji was really good. We saw at the World Cup that even though he has the physical attributes to do that, I think his hold-up play isn't the best. Definitely got him a lot more comfortable on the ball, playing on the wings, drifting as a striker really on the left, playing as a winger really. Very versatile in that front three, and having Sims on the team as well. That Coventry side did really gel up a lot better than I thought they would at the beginning of the season. I think it's a quality game for him. Nice to get the confidence streak going, and I think this is just ideal. So we have a versatile player for Copa America. So I'm going to pick Haji Wright. I think it's not an absurd choice right here. Moving on to the sour note. Again, we do fluctuate between these stock ups and downs, so it makes for a nice variety. Who has gotten the stock down, Braden?
And this one's going to be another player who is actually with the A team. I picked Balogun for stock up. It's going to be Joe Scally for stock down. We can start with the USMNT performance against Jamaica. We criticized him heavily for that game. A lot of other people did it as well. looking back at it, maybe it was a little too harsh. It wasn't originally his man coming in, the left back Greg Lee, but he probably should have picked him up, and I think he shied away from the ball a little bit, which is not something you want to see. And I would have forgiven that if he didn't do kind of the exact same thing for Gladbach this past weekend. Again, losing his mark, and this time it was specifically his mark, losing that and led to a Freiburg goal. They ended up losing the match 3-0 at home. Not a good performance for him or PFOC or the team, just all around not a great performance from any of them. And honestly, I think Scally's been overlooked this season in terms of how poor he's been. His form at club, he has been more of a consistent starter than last season, which is nice to see. His goal contribution numbers are up from last season, if that means anything from a fullback. His attacking has been a lot better. But on the defensive side, I think he still leaves a lot to be desired. And especially as a backup for Serginho Dest, who we all know lacks a little bit on the defensive side at times, as good as he is going forward. I think as a backup for him, you want someone who's very defensively solid. And Scally hasn't really shown that this season. He is still 21, starting in the Bundesliga. He has a lot of potential, and he's been linked to some bigger clubs as well. But I think we might need to pump the brakes a little bit on the hype and just kind of let him develop in peace.
Yeah, we tend to automatically put stigmas that if a player isn't great going forward, oh, that means he's good defensively. But I don't think that's really been the case if people have watched Scally this season. Still really young, though. And the next pick right here is I'm actually picking a league, MLS, because I couldn't make up my mind who I was going to pick. I think that the level of play, I don't really watch MLS that much. I've been trying to do better this year, watching the games, and I think it's really foul play in terms of how little pressure there is on the midfield. We've seen in the past how people have gone to Europe. Gianluca Buzio, for example, gave an interview in the past saying that the time on the ball is something that you really catch on as soon as you're in Europe, that it is completely different. And I'm highlighting this. Basically, it's unfair to say I didn't want to pick Aidan Morris. He had a great game for the Crew, but it only goes to show the level of our league, really, because he has insane stats for a defensive midfielder, does really well. I think he was man of the match, really. Saw some highlights, and I watched the first half. He was really impressive. But then again, that's a huge contrast from the game that he played against France's U23s. That's a good side. Nobody really gave us a chance before that game, but if you watched it, you saw how uncomfortable he was both on and off the ball. The positional awareness, the alertness, really. I think it's fair to say perhaps that game is the game that Aidan Morris played against the best players he's ever played in his career, and it's a U23 side from Europe. So I'm picking on the league a little bit because although going forward it's nice and it's flashy, I think on the defensive side, we've hit this key time and time again. We are really behind, and it's time for the league to start transitioning from an entertainment league to actually developing players that can play from the back, really, and not having to go to Europe to hone their skills in that matter. I think that if Morris, at the age he is, goes right now, he'd be finding himself a lot more steps backwards than he could have if he had moved in the past, and it's mostly due to the league, not really the player. So a bit of a weird pick there, but just putting my 2 cents on MLS there. Hopefully it gets better, though. I'm definitely going to keep on watching. Now, your next pick, Braden.
I will say, to defend MLS a little bit, you mentioned the youth development, and one thing that MLS is doing right is the Generation Adidas Cup that's going on right now, and it gives me the perfect chance to plug our Twitter. Link in the description. We've been covering the GA Cup very extensively there. Probably one of the #1 Twitter pages, if I do say so myself, for that competition, and just Americans in general. We've been doing a very good job, working very hard to make sure to cover everything in terms of youth players, established players, under the radar players, everything in between. So if you want a constant, consistent update on all the players in our pool, go check us out there. Link is in the description as always. But getting into my final stock up pick for this week, and who else but Tyler Adams, coming back from injury, making his first Premier League start for his new club, Bournemouth, several months later than anticipated, a lot later than anticipated, but he's back, and he's back with a bang, winning man of the match in his first game back. Now, I will say maybe some of that was due to the fact he's back from injury. It's his first match, but he was very, very good in the game. Didn't look out of place at all. It looked like he's been playing with this team for years, and I think he just fits in seamlessly. And it'll shut up some of the Leeds fans in particular. I don't know why they decided to turn on him. McKennie and Aronson, I kind of understand they were very poor, especially the second half of the season, but they had to go with the anti-American agenda, despite Adams being one of their best players last season, and he's proving it now again. He's a Premier League quality CDM, and a good one at that. Just wait until he's really back, fully healthy, with a good run of games under his belt, back to form, shaking off the rust. I think he's going to be very dangerous for Bournemouth next season in the Premier League and even in the summer for us in Copa America.
Yeah, and on that, I just want to add, if Greg does play with a 10, I think that's even better for Tyler, because then it relieves him of the duty of having to progress the ball so much. We're going to have a midfielder that's centrally focused on that. So it's really nice to see him. What a month for him. What a comeback. The man became a father. This could be the year of his life if he leads us to something special in Copa America. Moving on to my next pick. It's for another, I'm picking this player based on another tournament we have going on in the summer, the Olympics. It's Nathaniel Brown. Some people don't really know, but I think he had a really good game. If you watch, there was this full game, full match on Daily Motion right away. It's probably down by now. But I thought, even though he did concede a penalty, it was a little bit soft, and I thought he was amazing throughout the match defensively. And after watching how bad and uncomfortable John Token was at that game, and how I think that Wiley isn't really a left back going forward in his career, I think that a guy that is Olympic eligible, used to playing at a high level in Europe, playing with these guys in that environment, that could be really good. Also playing for a German club who are notoriously good for releasing their players. I think Nathaniel Brown goes under the radar a lot. Granted, he's a dual national, not fully committed to the U.S., but it's definitely an option that we could keep an eye out, because that's a position where we don't really have a lock, and he's playing at a higher level than Jonathan Gomez, for example. I think he's been doing really well, defensively great, good stature as well, and comfortable on the ball. I think he had the most duels won 10 duels, 5 tackles that he all won, 100% success rate. So very, very impressive game for Nathaniel Brown. I like to pick some under the radar players that are young, so that's my final pick there. Moving on to the last one that gets a stock down, Braden.
One thing I'll say about Brown is, due to him being with the Germany U21s, I'm not sure, number one, if he's even eligible for the Olympics. I think there might be some rule there if he's played in the official competition, or if he'd even choose us just for the Olympics. I think it'd have to be a senior team call-up, but he's definitely a player to keep an eye on. He'll be in the Bundesliga with Eintracht Frankfurt next season. He's going to be one to watch in a top 5 league, as are a lot of our players, even more than ever. But for my final stock down, I had to pick someone from PSV. Unfortunately, their undefeated streak in the league, 42 games, a hugely impressive feat. Props to everyone at the club for that. But coming to an end with a 3-1 loss over the weekend, and I'm going to go for Ricardo Pepi, because you see Luke de Jong starts week in, week out. He never gets any rest, which means Pepi never gets any minutes. And when he does come on, sometimes it is as a striker, but when he comes on as a striker, he gets very little minutes. And with the other times he comes on, it's as a winger, just to accommodate Luke de Jong. It's clearly not his best position at all. He's not the fastest of players. He clearly doesn't fit that position. And Luke de Jong missing a penalty as well that Dest did win in the game could have given them a lifeline, but ultimately ended up sealing the loss. I think they do need to transition. Next season, Pepi should, in theory, start getting a lot more minutes. De Jong will be phased out a little bit. He's getting up there in age. As much of a legend as he is, it's time to move on, look to the future. But just due to the lack of minutes that Pepi's been getting this season, and it doesn't look to be stopping at all as the season comes to an end. And with our other strikers in red hot form, I mentioned Balogun, you mentioned Sargent as well, scoring week in, week out. These other players, they're fighting for the spot. We even saw Haji Wright come in and take the starting spot against Mexico due to his brace against Jamaica. There's so many good strikers in our pool now that you really can't afford to not have a run of games or be in bad form.
Yeah, definitely. If I was Pepi, I'd be a little bit concerned with all these other options that we have. And it's only a year after we said that this was the position where we really needed a 9. So the times do fly in soccer. Everything can change in a blink of a second. Now, the next player I'm going to pick, I feel bad picking him. I really like him. I think he's definitely has the most potential out of our center backs. It's going to be Chris Richards. I don't think that the passing is something that really disappoints me. I'm a little bit obsessed with players that are comfortable on the ball. I get that he's a center back. But he did get his dues when he scored a goal, which is not really something that a center back really has to do, but props to him for that. I think we need to look at the things that are extremely important if we want to build a system where it really propels us to that next level. And I think on the ball, he's really not comfortable. I think that Palace, I think the new manager bounce has a little kind of died out a little bit, which is expected. And I hope that they do keep him in the starting lineup next year. But I think that positional awareness, which we saw in the Nations League, isn't really at the best level possible. I don't think it's a focus issue. I just think it's really awareness in the position. I don't know if it's the lack of a coach, because he was being coached by a dinosaur throughout the entire season, really not getting options. played a little bit kind of everywhere. I think that maybe has had an effect on him, but I don't think it was a good match from him ultimately. And I think that Palace next year should be a little bit concerned if they don't get some good new signings in. So that's why I'm picking him, but just because I have to pick someone really. Now, the players that come towards the end of the video where we pick players who will be putting on our stock watch and keeping a close eye on, as they should have some perhaps important matches coming up. We do a mainstream pick, which is a player where everybody knows, and an under the radar pick, where it's a player that perhaps not many of you guys know. Who are you going for, Braden?
Yeah, so for my main player, I'm going to go for Cameron Carter-Vickers. I've been very critical of him this season. He's had some unlucky spells out due to injury, but ultimately I don't think the level he's playing at is high enough. But it's the Old Firm Derby this weekend, which means it's the only chance really in Scotland for him to play against a somewhat respectable team. Rangers obviously have a lot of history in Europe, as do Celtic. Maybe not as much recently, but Rangers did make the Europa League final a couple of years back. They're a very solid team, one of the only ones you're going to get like that in Scotland. It's really the only chance he has at all at Celtic, besides the Champions League games where they get thrashed every time, to put in a good performance against a high-quality team. So I'm really looking at him to do that. He missed out on the USMNT camp due to injury, although he was playing for Celtic throughout the international window. So I'm not really sure what the decision-making was there. Greg still wants him to be part of the main group for the Copa America in the summer, but I'm going to need to see some good performances against high-quality teams before I can trust him personally. He has an opportunity to do that. I'm hoping he can. Honestly, do I think he will? I'm not too sure, but it's the opportunity that he needs. Hopefully he can take it with both hands. And then for my sleeper candidate, this guy's gone very under the radar, and he just made his debut in a top 5 league. Already better competition than CCV, but it's going to be the 19-year-old striker Joel Umasuen from Werder Bremen. He's been tearing it up for their second team all year. He's got, I think, 27 goals. I think they're playing in the 4th or 5th tier. It's not the highest of levels, granted, but he's clearly rated highly enough at the club that he was included in the squad for the first team for the first time and came on very late in the game to get his official debut. So congrats to him. I'm going to be looking forward to see for the last couple games of the season whether he is continued to be included in the squad. I think he's going to be a first team member next season. And we've been talking about Damian Downs a little bit at Cologne. Similar situation, 19-year-old USMNT eligible striker. He came on, he got his chance after impressing with the reserves, and he scored a goal. Maybe Umasuen can be the same for Werder Bremen. I honestly rate him a little bit higher than Downs as a striker prospect. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can get a more extended run in the team the next couple of games of the season, and next season, the sky's the limit for him. And also, actually, quickly, another bonus thing to watch for our fans. On Tuesday in the Premier League, we have not one, but 2 American derbies. So keep an eye out on that. Nottingham Forest versus Fulham and Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace. It's an all-American clash on Tuesday. So if you can, keep tabs on that. It's going to be a fun day.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition for my pick. I actually picked Gio Reyna because of that. And because I think that Forest, I think this is the first time where we've been talking about it the entire season. Gio mentioned it after the Nations League, but they are really close. They're level in points now with Luton. Luton playing a little bit better, surprisingly. I think they're getting some shape defensively, not that they're doing better, but Forest needs to pick up points. I mean, it's time to do it. I think that Gio, although that hockey assist wasn't really anything to go crazy over, he participated in the game. He was getting minutes. That's better than most of his season. And he's such a talented player. I hope that he gets to play, gets some minutes around, and helps them in a crucial game. I think that Fulham has done all their duties already. They're already secured mid-table, had a little run in the cups as well. Time to let Gio thrive there with Forest, and let's watch it. Also, the next guy that I'm picking is Zach Booth. His team's done already. But the reason why I'm picking him is because they're playing Feyenoord, which makes it a lot easier to watch him. If you go on streams, or if you have DAZN by any chance, you can use a VPN and watch that game. I'll definitely keep an eye on it. I think that Zach is a player that, I don't know if he got snubbed, but he could have a shout for the Olympic side. You never know what might happen. So honestly, I'll definitely keep an eye on him, and he's the only Booth that we can watch for the moment. So that's another bonus. But that brings it to an end. Thank you very much if you stuck around and watched this far into the video. We want to thank you guys again. Thank all of the new subscribers. Please let us know in the comments below what you thought. What have you thought about these picks? Suggestions for future videos. And again, check out our Twitter, where Braden does a great job there reporting the GA Cup. It's a very exciting competition. And yeah, let's go USA. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and share with your friends. We'll see you next time.